Yes, my friends, welcome back. 4 massive stories to break down today. We have updates around Moises Caicedo. We talk the latest Lautaro Martinez news. Man City are getting closer to signing Mateo Kovacic. And we talk all things AC Milan, including Pulisic, Loftus-Cheek, and Maignan as well too. So right now, we've got a ton of things to break down. I hope you guys enjoy it. Share your thoughts and opinions too. And of course, hit that like button. That lets me know whether you like the video or whether you don't. So my friends, before we get into things, I've got one very special announcement to make first. Today's latest video is sponsored by Chelsea's official betting partners in Parimatch UK. Now, as I said earlier, Parimatch UK are offering new customers 35-1 odds in Man City's favour to win the Champions League later this weekend. Now, to compete and claim this promotion, you must create an account first and opt into this promotion, make your deposit via debit cards, and place your pre-match bets on Man City to win the game within 90 minutes. Every single link you're going to need is going to be provided in the description below. Parimatch competitions are competitions that you don't want to miss out on. So thank you to Parimatch UK for sponsoring today's video. Now let's start things off and let's discuss the latest news around Mateo Kovacic. Now, late last night, Fabrizio Romano was the first reporter to break the latest updates, and at this point in time, after having advanced talks with Mateo Kovacic, Man City have finally agreed personal terms. Now, agreeing personal terms in football doesn't necessarily mean that you're set to sign the player. The final thing that Man City must do right now is agree a valuation that we actually accept. And right now, we're valuing Kovacic between 35 million to 40 million pounds. And listen, for me, the fact that a domestic direct rival like Man City wants one of our players to improve their squad, like there has to be like a Man City tax. Like, I'm sorry, like they can't be taking Kovacic for like, what, 30 million pounds? That's not good enough. But in my opinion, I do feel like Kovacic's departure now is reflective of a football club that's starting to kind of understand that if you want to have real success, your team must have an identity of play. And in my opinion, I feel like Kovacic, he really peaked under Thomas Tuchel, playing a more like positional style game, playing like a more methodical, slower possession style game. And that's when we saw Mateo playing in the pivot, which for me is his best position because I feel like his real playmaking actually comes within our own half when he's like receiving balls from defenders and wing backs, playing out from the back, skipping past players for fun, and quickly playing direct vertical passes to the striker up front. And for these reasons, I do feel like he could be a smart acquisition for Man City, regardless of the fact that last season was probably his worst season with us, and statistically that was his worst season too. Now, I'm not going to be too brutal on him for that, because every single player last season underperformed. Like, that's the reality of the thing. It was a complete circus for everyone, and no one can rise above that and play their best football. I think when you give Kovacic rules and instructions, he understands them, and that's when he can take advantage of them and really bring them to life, right? So I do think at Man City that plays that positional style game, with the forward like hauling up front, where similar to Lukaku, I can imagine Kova playing those like direct, like through ball passes on the ground to be finding Holdens, just like he did for Lukaku. I think he prefers that pass compared to playing like a pass in behind. But in terms of his like, technical brilliance, because let's be serious, even if you don't like Kovacic, you can't disrespect this guy's technical play. I mean, some of the things that he does on the ball in terms of playing out and the improvisation, I mean, it is world class. And I think in Pep's team, he might make a bit more sense than him making sense for us right now. I think right now, when I think of our midfield, I think of Enzo Fernandez. Like, he is our future, because I think Enzo is one of the rare players right now that could end up being like top 5 in the world once he really hits his peak, right? And for me, like, if we don't make sure we do everything possible in our powers to make sure that he fulfills that potential, then I'm sorry that we're an absolute joke of a club then. So I think right now, focusing on guys like your Caicedos and others to really help unlock Enzo and take his game to another level, that will be the way for us to go in the future right now. And I do think that this comes at the expense of a Kovacic, because could these two really work together? I mean, they did do well, but there are going to be weaknesses that also come from that. So right now, Man City, give us the money. At least 40 million in my opinion. But you guys, how do you feel about this news? Let us know below. And right now, let's move on to second reports. So let's discuss the latest reports around Moises Caicedo. right now, we're in a bit of like a midfield crisis. Most of our midfields can leave, they can be sold. We're seeing N'Golo Kante was set to be signing for Al Ittihad. I'm kind of curious to know what happens with the medical, considering that Kante is currently out injured. So I'm hoping that nothing gets flopped in those regards. We've missed out on signing Ugarte. Kova, Ruben and many others are close to leaving us too. Midfield is a massive priority for next season. And if you're allowing quality like this to leave, because for me, the players we're selling aren't terrible individually. It's about how these guys combine, like playing together. That's the key thing here. And most of these guys who could be leaving us, they're not going down levels and levels, right? They're not going to flipping Crystal Palace or anything like that. So if we're allowing quality to leave, we must bring in quality. And it seems that the guy who is number one for us right now, who has always been a key target since January, is Moises Caicedo. With Ugarte out the picture right now, we need a profile like this so bad. And Caicedo, a guy that can play as a 6, that can play in a 2, in a 3. I do feel sometimes that when people discuss players like him, they only solely focus their opinions based on how the last manager used him. But Caicedo has been this like very flexible guy throughout midfield throughout his entire career. Like if you're going to play at the highest level, you can't only be good at one thing, right? And I do feel like his qualities alongside Enzo, maybe just sitting, which I think Caicedo can easily do, that would be the way that I like to use him. Right now, it seems like Brighton might have a little bit of a bidding war at their hands, because we know that Arsenal, of course, are set to come back to try and sign him. And recently reported today, Newcastle are also very interested in signing him, because Newcastle now have Champions League football, which means that they can spend a bit more now based on FFP restrictions, and they're going to be going for top quality players in the market. So I'm hoping that we're not going to be paying crazy money for Caicedo. But as we already know, Brighton are hoping that Colwill will go in the other direction. Now they've had a 30 million bid turned down, and I think the 40 million bid that they've come back with, which is a club record for Brighton, is set to be turned down too. We've made things very clear. We want Colwill here for next season, and I can't imagine Colwill wanting to leave. You know, Badiashil's out injured. Pochettino rates this guy highly, wants to use him, and actually when you study his career, he actually does give young players opportunities. Next season could be Colwill's breakthrough season with us, and I don't see us messing that up or flopping that. I'd like to think with our relationship with Brighton, which is a very good professional one. Paul Winsley, that was the former sporting director there, who's now our current sporting director, who's very close to Caicedo. You like to think that we have the advantage right now, but currently the latest reports that are in fact only coming from social media, so I apologize to you guys for that. You don't have to take them too seriously if you don't really trust them. But the latest consensus from social media is that we are prepared to match any bids from Arsenal. And in a sense, it's very similar to how we signed Mudryk. Now, we ended up finding better payment structures in the end, remember, that allowed us to sign Mudryk to begin with. And Arsenal's plan completely backfired because at the time, they were the only major interested party in Mudryk, whilst we kept our interest in the shadows. Now, we're still relying on player sales to give us that extra flexibility to sign guys like this, but at the same time, Brighton have shown tons of interest in other players apart from Levi Colwill. There has been light interest around Trevor Chalobah, Conor Gallagher. So right now, it's set to be a very tough battle to sign Caicedo, but we do have advantages in our favour, and the news today is confirming the fact that right now that we've moved on from Ugarte, we will be focusing our attentions now on Caicedo. And I think for this signing, we can't afford to fail. We can't flop, we can't come in weak, because it's about the quality of guys you're bringing in. Because for me, if we miss out on signing the top guys like the Caicedos and we're going for mid-tier options again for overpriced fees, then this new board would have learned nothing from the old one, and we're wasting our time. So that's a very cynical end to this story. We got 2 more reports left, and let's discuss light updates around Lautaro Martinez. Now, with Benzema, of course, signing for Al Ittihad, of course, Madrid are in the market now for a world-class elite deep line forwards. I'd like to think they can come back with a better offer for Havertz, but knowing the fact that Kai won't be committing to signing a new deal, we don't have incredible amounts of leverage to be able to really dictate the fee we want, especially when Kai didn't overperform in anything last season. So it really comes down to whether we are open, of course, to bringing the fee down, or as I have been alluding to, certain players are getting very high values because it's we are still open to keeping you, But at the same time, if we receive offers of this level, you guys can definitely go. I think that's where we are right now, and Havertz definitely falls in that bracket. I think if his move to Madrid did fail, I think Pochettino could make him maybe love football a bit more and hopefully find a better use for him. But regardless, we go back to Martinez, and of course, for any Inter Milan player, the future will be decided after this weekend's Champions League final. Pochettino sees Martinez as his number one guy and would love to bring him here for next season. He admires him for his partnership, his link-up play, and his world-class ability. Now, Madrid showing interest doesn't surprise me whatsoever, but right now, Harry Kane is their main priority. And I'm hoping they secure him to give us like a bit of a potential chance at signing Martinez. I mean, I've liked this guy since I first heard about him playing in Argentinian football. I mean, from when I saw his game, I kind of knew he'd become like an elite level forward. And this guy's combination of like upper body strength, low center of gravity, speeds, link-up play, like the technique behind his shooting. Like, he's got a variety of different shooting techniques. Like, it makes it harder for defenders or teams to actually close him down because he can improvise and has the execution, of course, to pull most shots off. I feel like with Martinez under Pochettino, in the right conditions, if things work out perfectly, he could be someone that definitely eclipses a Harry Kane because he has a bit more to his game than Kane right now. And when you have guys like Nkunku, like, you have to complement top players with top players around them. Like, for the big clubs like us, like, that's the only way to do things. At the same time though, my friends, am I feeling optimistic? Probably not. I think this will be incredibly hard because we don't have Champions League football. And it means that if we want to sign him, we're going to have to overpay to sign him. And it really comes down to Pochettino's influence and words. Maybe Enzo Fernandez talking to him too. At the same time, you know, if Madrid get desperate, they have the funds to turn back to him. Or if Inter Milan win the Champions League, he may decide to just remain there because he is very settled currently at Inter, but he will decide his future, assess all offers after the Champions League final. So all we can do right now is be optimistic, cross our fingers, and hope and pray. So right now, my friends, let's end things with the final story, and let's turn our attentions to AC Milan because currently we are interested in Maignan, and they're showing interest in Ruben and Christian Pulisic. Now, in the case of Ruben, he was getting close to actually finalizing a deal with Milan until they sacked Paolo Maldini. Right now, his future's in limbo. We don't know if Milan will come back to, of course, continue negotiations and complete things. It would be a massive shame, in my opinion, especially for Ruben. But he also has tons of interest from other top clubs in Serie A. So, at the end of the day, if he does leave, which I'm expecting him to, we should be receiving decent money for him. Right now, latest reports are talking about Christian Pulisic making his move to AC Milan. Now, Milan see Pulisic as a very important signing because he gives them access to the American market. And of course, Milan are looking to branch out and really just boost their club earnings. And Pulisic and his influence could be helpful in those regards. Pulisic's currently transfer listed, and right now, because he has a year left on his deal, he is available for around 20 million euros. Milan have been holding consistent conversations with his agency, and they've had direct talks with club officials at our club too. But in typical Serie A fashion, wages are always a stumbling block because we give these guys incredible wages, which most clubs can't actually afford. My thing is though, is this the best move for Pulisic? He'd have to compete alongside Leao, which is not going to happen, or otherwise he is reinventing himself playing down the right hand side. Napoli have also shown interest, but it's the same thing, you know, with Kovacic on the left hand side, he'd have to play down the right hand side, but you know, playing for teams that have European football in an environment where he can, you know, try and find his football again. He's been quite unfortunate with certain injuries, but at the same time, finding it very hard to have much of an influence in the first team these days, so it's best for all parties that he does move on. But this is where things are interesting now because, as we already know, we are in the market now for two goalkeepers. Andre Onana and Maignan are the two main candidates at this point in time. Maignan released a very cryptic tweet after the sudden departure of Maldini. Many players at Milan are very upset by his sacking. Maldini was very influential at keeping these guys at the club to begin with, but Italian reports state that both Maignan and Onana are valued around 60 million euros. Maignan was set to hold contract extension talks with Maldini before he got sacked because currently he has 3 years left on his deal. But right now it seems like the player is not interested in continuing talks, and now it's up to AC Milan. they could cash in on this guy, where they could sell him this summer for maximum value as he has 3 years left on his deal. They already have potential alternatives in mind. This could be the best opportunity to cash out whilst he's at his most highest value. But similar to Andre Onana, where we're hoping to exchange players to bring some of the costs down, Milan are interested in Pulisic. I don't know if they're still interested in Loftus-Cheek, but if you combine both values, that's around like, what, 35 to 40 million euros. Could we look to do some business, exchanging whilst giving money for a player that might not be that committed to AC Milan anymore? Again, once the Champions League final ends, once the window officially opens on the 14th this month, things will start to kick off, so stay tuned for the latest reports. So my guys, that's the latest reports so far this afternoon. If there are big reports this evening, you guys know where to find me on BlueLionsTV. So thank you for watching, share your thoughts and opinions, hit the like button, and I'll see you guys all soon. Cool.